Hello to you, Sir Roger. Thanks for joining us. So 2 heavy losses with by-elections. The chairman of the party resigns at 5:30 in the morning, and still the Prime Minister remains in post. It would appear that whatever happens, he's invincible.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to express my commiserations with the candidates in both of those by-elections. They deserve better, frankly, than what they were facing. This is clearly a massive vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, another vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. And an honourable and responsible man would be considering his position again this morning. That Oliver Dowden, the chairman of the party, has resigned, I think is significant. Oliver is a decent and an honourable man, and he's obviously decided that he can't go on trying to defend the indefensible. And I understand that. What the rest of the cabinet will do is a matter for the rest of the cabinet to decide. They're grown-ups, they've got to make their own decisions. But if more of them go, then even Mr. Johnson may find his position untenable.
But they haven't gone up until now. And as far as the letter of resignation is concerned from Oliver Dowden, I mean, it looks as though he's taking responsibility for what happened. He's the chairman of the party. It was him that was running the campaigns.
Well, you put this to Paul Scully, and in fact, he commented on it. That letter is excoriating if you read between the lines. He's doing the honourable thing and taking his responsibility as the person with responsibility for by-elections. But this responsibility lies fair and square at the door of the man in number 10. And he should be taking the responsibility, not Mr. Dowden, or indeed any other cabinet minister.
Well, as you know, Mr. Scully said you can't read between the lines. You can only read what's there, and that isn't what it says.
I think you can read between the lines, and I think Oliver Dowden has made his position, certainly in terms of the effect upon the membership of the Conservative Party, very clear indeed. Look, the West Country, I know very well. My family actually come originally from Axminster, which is part of that constituency. The West Country people are by nature liberals with a small L. What they've now translated into is one nation conservatives. And it is that reputation for honesty and decency and compassion, the one nation Tory view, that I think the Prime Minister has trashed. And that's why I'm taking such a strong stand on this, because I believe that we are actually literally fighting for the soul of our party. And I will fight to that to the death.
It's often been said that the Prime Minister's support is a mile wide and an inch deep, but nevertheless, he is remaining in power. What do you think it will have to take for him to go? You talk about other cabinet ministers potentially going in to see him, but there aren't any of those big beasts, so I was being told earlier, like Michael Heseltine, who will go in and say, sorry, old boy, now's the time.
Well, if a number of the cabinet members do resign, then, as I said, okay, his position, I think, would be untenable. But if that doesn't happen, and it may not, then we look to the Privileges Committee in the autumn. And it is an if, of course, they haven't reached their decision, but if the Privileges Committee were to find him guilty of deliberately misleading the House and suspend him, then I think that he would have to go. Unlike the Prime Minister, I'm not in favour of changing the rules in the middle of the game. But if we were faced with that situation, then I think the 1922 committee would have to look at changing the rules and allowing another no confidence vote. But as I said, we're not at that stage yet. We have to see what happens between now and then.
Isn't it fair to say, though, that he is a serial vote winner, and when it comes to the big votes, he does always seem to pull the rabbit out of the hat? And when it comes to by-elections, you know, your party, the Conservative Party, has lost a series of by-elections, but then always, or has then subsequently won a general election on occasion.
When you were interviewing Will earlier, he made the point to you, and I'll reiterate this, that was 2019. We're now in 2022. The world is a very different place in all sorts of ways. We are facing enormous challenges in terms of cost of living, in terms of fuel, Ukraine. We've got another huge problem of Johnson's making, actually, coming down the tracks on Monday, when we're going to be asked to vote for legislation that effectively will allow the United Kingdom, if that's the right word, to breach an international agreement, the Northern Ireland Protocol. there are a lot of problems lying ahead, and I think it now requires a change of leader and a good, determined, honest, responsible Prime Minister to take us through those very uncharted waters. And contrary to what Will said, there are significant numbers of people available, any one of whom could do the job well. And we've played this game before. I'm not going to name a name now, but I'm quite certain that the moment that there is a leadership contest, a good new leader for the Conservative Party to take us forward with conservative policies, tax-cutting policies, financial policies that will serve the people of this country, will take us forward in the right direction.
You have spoken previously about changes potentially to the rules regarding the 1922 committee and being able to vote with a vote of no confidence for the Prime Minister. As things stand, it will be in place for another year, so the Prime Minister cannot be ousted by that method for another year. Do you want to look again, potentially, at those rules being changed? What would you say to Sir Graham Brady, who is basically the shop steward?
As I've said, unlike the Prime Minister, I'm not in favour of changing the rules in the middle of the game. But if the Privileges Committee were to suspend him, and if he were then to refuse to resign, I think we would have to change the rules.